Greetings. My name is Luis Molina, and I'm the host of the Life Puro. Today's conversation, we feature Jeremy Stuckey, who is a Lighthouse Lounge member and pipe aficionado. So with that, Jeremy, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you for having me, man. Glad to be on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And like I mentioned, I look to you for like pipe information. So I've been wanting to do this kind of episode for a while now.
Well, I got at least some of it.
Yeah. So before we get started, we usually give our guests a cigar, but obviously with the pipe tobacco, we wanted to gift you pipe tobacco today. And you want to maybe talk and explain to us maybe some of the information behind this brand?
So the tobacco that he just handed to me is Dorchester from Esoterica, which is a line made by Germain's, which is a company out of the Jersey Isles in England. And they started making these blends kind of similar for a little shop called Smoker's Haven up in the north. But they started with their own line of blends, and eventually it became so popular that they made their own versions, and they started selling it for the American market under Esoterica Tabacchiana.
Okay.
It's now, originally it was one of those ones you could walk in and find it just about anywhere, as long as they had a good contact with Arango, they got their stuff in. But through the hype of online and forums, it's become this race to get it.
Yeah.
They're great tobaccos. I'm not sure, I love them. I have my own stash, and I'm grateful to add this one to my pile. Dorchester is one of my favorites. It's an easy smoking. It has a lovely apricot note to it. It's delicious. But I also find that, it's one of the things I've noticed with pipe tobacco, and you've probably seen it with cigars as well. There's a chase with a lot of them. And yes, it's good. Yes, I have chased it. But now that I'm comfortable with it, I don't find the need to stock up on it every time. But I'm happy that I've gotten to the point where I'm at that. But for others, if you can get your hands on it, go for it. Give it a shot. It's delicious.
Have you come across any tobacconists or pipe shops where they don't allocate or divvy out Esoterica? I mean, can you actually find it in a shelf? Yeah,
I mean, I've seen places that I know of people that have shops that they can walk in, and it just might not be popular in the area. The market might not have as many people that know about it. It might be a bit of an older market because this is a relatively newer brand. I think 2000s is when they started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's some places, but there's also a lot of places like y'all, which I do respect about y'all, helping to prevent the flippers and the people, because believe it or not, there's a crazy secondary market for this.
How much would some of that go?
So
on the secondary market
depends on the blend.
Okay.
And it's absurd. But your big three for Esoterica, you have Penzance, you have Stonehaven, and you have Peacehaven. All three are flakes of some varietal. They're not produced as often because they're flakes. It takes a little bit more in the process. But Penzance specifically has gotten this cult following, and it's absurd how crazy some of this is. But people will buy those bags when they come up, and they might MSRP for $60. I've seen them being flipped online for upwards of $500.
$500 for an 8-ounce bag?
It's absurd.
Jeez.
But you know where they're going?
Where?
China.
Oh, really?
Yes. The majority of the flippers that are paying that prices are Chinese buyers. They're importing them overseas.
Oh.
So it's kind of similar to what you're seeing with Habanos and the Chinese market buying up all those, and those prices keep going up and up and up and up. The only difference here is their prices aren't keeping going up and up and up because it's for the American market just being flipped overseas.
Yeah.
So it's a weird race to get them, because a lot of people like me, I want them to smoke.
Right.
I'm not going to flip them. And I have a few people that over the years of meeting people online, and through y'all, if I buy from y'all, I'm buying the smoke. I'm either going to smoke it myself or I'm going to gift it to a friend.
Yeah.
So I don't like the people that flip. It doesn't make.
Yeah.
It's not. It's meant to be smoked.
Yeah. I mean, and I get the flippers. I mean, we've talked about this topic regarding bourbon, certain rare cigars. It happens with the pipe tobacco, but that's why, for us, we would rather sell to someone like you that's going to smoke it as opposed to us doing the work of, having to buy other product just to get a little bit of this allocated stuff. But we don't necessarily want to price gouge, but we will put a premium to deter any of that flipping too.
Yes.
So, but we've kind of have evolved to the point of, all right, we'll just reward our top buyers or your Lighthouse Lounge member. That's our private club here in Baton Rouge. And that's one of the benefits of being a member. You can have access to some of this rare stuff.
Yep. So,
but I smoked some of that over the weekend. I've never smoked it, and it's really I mean, it's an English blend, right? So
no, this is actually a Virginia Perique. So
really,
yes,
to me, it had kind of a smokier character to it.
So you might be picking up a little bit of that from the Perique. It's not super uncommon, but it's a darker flavor.
So maybe more of an earthy kind of pungent. Is maybe what I was smoking.
But no, this is Virginia Tobaccos and Louisiana Perique, a lovely product made in our own St. James Parish. But yeah, so these blends typically have a bit more of like a fermentation flavor.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
a funky kind of.
Yeah, with that from the Perique and the Virginias in this blend, and I think I've noticed it amongst Esoterica's Virginia-based stuff. There's like a fruit topping that I always equate as apricot.
Okay.
So I find it interesting that you got a little bit of a smoky flavor. Now it also could be another aspect of pipe smoking, ghosting.
What's that?
So if you were to take a heavy, bold flavored blend, or like an English tobacco that has Latakia, which is a very smoky, bold tobacco, the smell will work its way into the cake of the pipe. And the cake is this layer of carbon that is built up on the inside of the pipe that helps protect the actual briar wood from being burned. And it builds up over time, but you can get like flavor. If you're smoking a lot of heavy aromatics or a lot of like English blends, you will notice that some of the smokes kind of have a twinge of that flavor that is just baked into that cake.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. I guess like beginners or people who don't know about pipe tobacco, when they see that build up, they might think, oh, it's really gross or there's something wrong. Like I'm doing something wrong, but it's actually a benefit.
It's an integral part of it. It's a way of, it's a step of the maintenance of maintaining your pipes, because this hobby is definitely an older, like well-wizened one. You know, it's been going on since basically the dawn of America, since they've been on pipe tobacco. But, you know, part of it is maintaining your pipes, cleaning them out. You know, one of the things they sell are reamers to level out that cake in there to get it. Like, you want about the thickness of a dime is what I've always been told.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've been told, and that's what we educate our customers. You want it, if the cake gets to like the thickness of a nickel, then you use that reamer to kind of like carve out, I guess,
the part
chip away, that cake back to like the width of a dime. So, but no, cool. But what else you got here? I like your setup here.
Oh, thank you. This is a little folding tray, and do you mind me, Lou? I will kind of plug in a little shop here. I picked this up at a local quote unquote pipe mecca in Mississippi called the Country Squire.
Oh yeah.
And those guys, if you know anything about pipe tobacco, and I can never not say anything good enough about them. John David Cole's the guy who runs it. He's took it over after many years of that place being open, but they blend their own stuff. That's one of the beauties of pipe tobacco is, and y'all have a few blends that y'all tinker with as well. The ability, like you can blend the tobaccos easier, but this is a little leather tray that they came out with that is collapsible and will clip together and snap together and rolls up into your pipe pouch, or, you know, you could throw it in your pocket. And one of the things that I do, as I've done here, is I have my tobacco laid out to where it dries a little bit, because pipe tobacco is inherently packed moister or more wet than cigars are. Cigars are designed to be cut, light, go. Pipe tobacco, you can do the same, but because of how much moisture is in there, you can get an effect called tongue bite if you're not careful.
Okay.
Where the steam from the water in the blend will work its way down the pipe, and it's not fun. It hurts.
Yeah. Yep.
And it will throw off your taste, and nothing's more fun than taking like a sip of Coke or something after you've had that happen. You're like, ooh, yep.
Yeah, it's like almost like prick, like you get that prickly sensation.
Yeah, it's like finding a cut when you're cutting lemons.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Kind of similar. But the blend that I have today that I pulled out, since it's a first time, and I figured treat Lou with something good that hasn't been on the market for years, is Frog Morton Cellar, which is made famous by McClellan, which was a old blending house that is now no longer out of business, but they went out of business to hold their integrity, which I have to give them props for. but this is a English blend. It's actually an English crossover blend. So it is their Frogmorton base English, to which they took whiskey staves from a barrel from a local distillery. They never disclosed what distillery. Everyone's been trying to figure it out to help to remake this blend. But basically, as soon as those barrels were dumped, they were rushed to McClellan, cut into cubes, and thrown into tins and sealed up. And that's all the flavoring they add to it. So it picked up this kind of whiskey, kind of sweet note that is what made this blend so popular.
Okay.
So, but I got enough here that should be prepped and ready to go. Lou, if you want to load up a bowl and
basically, I brought one of my pipes. I don't have too many pipes, but I know there's like, I guess, debate with this. I tend to like smoking pipe tobacco more in the cooler months.
I agree.
But I've talked to one purist years ago who said, like, well, that's nonsense. Like, you should, like, weather shouldn't dictate, when you smoke a pipe. But for me, I guess, and like most people have said, something about the warmth of the bowl, you're outside, and it's cold. It just kind of helps. Like,
it's just, and also like the mystique. Like we've seen the Christmas movies of like the old gentleman, the wizened person sitting there telling stories with a pipe in hand. Or, even Santa Claus has been depicted holding a pipe.
That's right. Yeah.
So like I'm the same way. Spring and summer, that's cigar time.
Yeah.
As soon as that weather starts cooling down, I don't want to be outside for as long. I grab my pipe because typically, not always, pipes are a shorter smoke.
That's right. Yeah, even like at max pack, what would you say is average smoke time? I know there's so many variables, but like average size bowl, average kind of moisture content.
It depends. Like if I'm smoking a ribbon like we are today, average size bowl, 30 minutes.
Yep. That's what I figured, like 30, 35 minutes.
30, 35 minutes. But if you have some pipes that have, I have some that have big bowls. I have some that have small bowls. That's another big variable. I've had some cut, and there's different cuts as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Like when you have your flakes or your crumble cakes or your coins. I've had some pipe bowls last 2-3 hours, believe it or not. But
what?
Yes.
Really? 2 to 3 hours?
Oh, well, half the time is because I'm sitting there doing something else.
Yeah.
But, they will work its way down. And that's another thing I've learned about pipe tobacco is if it goes out, relight it.
Yeah.
Because it's not the same as cigars.
Yeah. So while I'm prepping the pipe, can you maybe give a primer as to how to prep, like for the beginner? Because I guess that's an intimidating thing for beginners, or like, it's just so much work.
It's so definitely one of the things I've seen people get caught up on, especially when reading online. And that's where a lot of my knowledge came from. This was just, I got into the hobby and said, let me jump on in. But what Lou was doing is called the 3-pinch method. And you start out, you grab a pinch, you fill up your bowl till basically full. You take your tamper and you lightly tamp it down till it stops basically giving. You put another pinch, you go down with a little bit more force, and typically a third pinch, and if about a bit more force than the second time. You don't want to overpack it. You overpack it, you're not going to be able to draw through it. It's going to be a pain. You're going to be cursing. But if you do it right, and it takes practice, it's not something you're going to learn on the first try.
Oh, I messed up over the weekend with the Dorchester. I think because I wasn't used to, I guess, this kind of cut or the moisture content. I packed it way too tight. Yeah. So I had to start again.
Well, it happens. And grab my handy dandy trusty little.
You got your tamper?
I have my tamper. It's in my pocket.
No, we got one here.
That's all.
Which what I have is we call it the pipe nail. Yep. So it's got 2 components. We have like the scooper and what this part, probably the most important part, the tamper, which helps pack this pipe tobacco. So
now I will admit my 3-pinch method has evolved into like a 2-pinch over the years.
Really? I usually do at least 3 or 4.
Well, I've gotten the gauge of how much my fingers can hold and what, like sometimes I'll overpack or I'll start pinching before I even go in there.
Yeah. So while you're doing that, I'll kind of give like our pitch to beginners, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. So basically you have your pipe ready. You take a pinch of tobacco at a time, just kind of drop it in until it overflows. And then that's when you take the tamper portion And like you said, I guess that's like the one of the more intimidating parts is how much pressure. But I tell people do it to where, like, I know a lot of people say that first pinch, do it where it's a little looser than the next ones. But I tell people just enough to where you can still get a draw, but it's that happy medium of like not too tight, but not too loose. And then I always do a test draw after each just to verify it's not.
And that's a great way of doing it, because at that point you can still edit and alter how much you pack. I've always associated with and been told, like, imagine sipping through a straw, like you're getting your soda all the way up to the top without actually taking a sip. Like you want, like that's how you want the draw to feel. Like you don't want to you don't want it to be too open. You don't want it to be too tight. You want to have a good like you're breathing through a straw.
Yeah, no, that's a good. I like that tip. And then so you might repeat that process 2, 3, 4 times. Yep. If it's more, don't worry about it. But I always tell people if you want to pack it at the max, you don't want the level of the pipe tobacco flush with this rim. You want like a little space below that.
Yes. You want to have a little bit of a clearance that just helps protect the life of your pipe.
That's right. Yep.
You don't want to burn your rim, because I mean, it's wood. End of the day, this is wood. It will burn. You don't want to mess it up.
Yeah. And then now is the lighting step.
So the lighting can also be a little bit finicky, but as I mentioned before, if it goes out, light it again. Don't worry about it. I've seen too many people worry about, oh, it won't stay lit the whole time. Light your pipe. Enjoy your tobacco.
Yeah.
So, but there's always a step that's called the charring light, which is, and we'll see how well the camera picks it up, but something you'll notice, the tobacco will kind of raise.
That's right.
It lifts because of the heat. But as I get into this, like, you want to
if you want to go ahead and I'll kind of fill in the information. So like Jeremy said, you kind of want to char it at first, kind of puff, and you're seeing if you can watch on TV or on video, he kind of goes around to make sure every little square inch of that tobacco is lit. And as you're puffing, sometimes most of the time that pipe tobacco will kind of rise. So don't freak out. When it's gotten a good enough light, then you take that tamper and you're kind of repacking that, because with the heat comes expansion, right? So this is the key. And a lot of beginners aren't taught this. You want to keep that pipe tobacco compact. I mean, right? That's the fuel for the fire. So
you want to keep the fire on the flame, on the leaf.
Yeah. And then you retamp it. But I don't know if you've ever done this technique. I'm sure you have. When the bowl is lit or the tobacco is lit, anytime you tamp, I like to draw in there at the same time. So otherwise, if you don't, you run the risk of just snuffing out that fire. So if you kind of feed it with air, oxygen, right, it'll keep that fire from going out.
Now I'm blanking on the word. It's like a carburetor effect. If you think about it, because you're choking off and where the airflow comes. In fact, what I'll do is, if you're watching on video, you probably see me do it. I take 2 fingers.
Okay.
And I'll set it over the top of the bowl and hold it like that. That way it limits the airflow, but because of that limitation and due to the lovely amount of physics, the air flows faster through that gap.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard of that or seen that technique. That's pretty interesting.
It's, once again, as I said, most of my stuff I got from the internet. Yeah. And so through the collective brain mass of many people online discussing
forums,
things, just things I've picked up here and there and other fun things.
And to me, that's the beauty of both pipes and cigars. I mean, there's just so much information out there. Like I don't pretend to be an expert or 100% knowing everything. I love learning little techniques
I'm always learning.
Yeah.
Never fails to learn. So,
and then, so you pretty much got it lit. You're ready to go. Sometimes you might have to touch up the pipe tobacco. I found maybe if someone snuffs it out too much or tamps it too much. And that's like Jeremy says, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
So basically what I've been taught too with pipe tobacco smoking is, it's an art, right? So it's that balance of smoking fast enough to where you keep the fire going, but not so fast where it increases that temperature where it's so hot and you might get that tongue bite,
or you can't hold the pipe.
Yeah, or it's uncomfortable. So with every different kind of cut there is, every pipe tobacco has its own moisture content. That's where the variabilities come into play. So you got to pay attention a little bit more to it. So one trick I've been told is that, or technique, is that if you can hold the bowl to your cheek and it's comfortable, then it's fine. If it's too hot, that means like slow down on the I guess the
you're puffing.
Mhm,
You slow
the
your
puff rate.
cadence down.
Oh, okay.
That's,
Yeah. That's
good
good
term
good
I've always used for it.
Yeah.
So if you want to get lit up, I can
fill in some tidbits or other information.
Let's see.
So this is the Frog Morton.
Yep.
From the famous McClellan, the now defunct or closed.
Now closed,
McClellan.
but as I touched on before, they shuttered their doors and they didn't sell their blends off, mainly because the quality of the tobaccos they were getting from the American side were going downhill. McClellan was known for and famous for their Virginia tobaccos, their Carolina Reds, their, the lemons, the oranges, all the ones they were getting stateside. Well, other factors, a lot of the cigarette industry was taken over. So farmers are more incentivized to grow cigarette grade tobacco as opposed to pipe leaf. And they noticed that the quality of Red Virginias, which was one of their biggest sellers, their mainstays were Red Virginias. They sold so many and they were so delicious, but they noticed that the quality was going down. And so they, instead of producing an inferior product, they decided to shutter their doors. And I believe it was 2017 when the decision went down. It was a mad dash for people buying it because no one wanted to lose it because of how solid it was. And for years, no one went deep on it,
right?
Because it was always available.
Yeah,
like that 10 you could pick up at a store for like $15 or online. That's
probably going to be my number one professional regret, is not opening up an account with McClellan. Every year at the trade show, I would see their table and always wanted to go. Like there was one year I actually got the pamphlets, information. I got some samples. I don't know where those samples are. I'm sure I have them somewhere. But just kind of put it off because of that sentiment. Like, oh, they're always going to be there. Like I'll pick it up at some point. And then that announcement came and I was so upset. In fact, like I should have just opened it up,
And I still remember that day when they announced, it started out with one of their blends, 5100, which was this red ribbon that was everywhere. You could find it anywhere. It was delicious. It was a simple, clean Red Virginia, nice, mildly sweet, not like overtly, just naturally. And I went to a local shop in town. You probably remember Miss Sarah,
Sarah.
Bayou Tobacco, which was at the time the pipe shop to go to. Her husband that ran it blended tobaccos out the wazoo, and I would put him on par with the Country Squire, as I mentioned earlier. Like they had some phenomenal blends.
Yeah.
And I remember going to Miss Sarah and I go, do y'all happen to have any 5100? She goes, well, I don't have any bulk, but I have this 10 that McClellan did at the time to skirt the deeming regulations from the FDA. They proved that they had prior sales of a tinned product because it was a different UPC than bulk. And so that is one of my prized possessions. It's a 3-ounce tin of 5100 that if I open it, it's going to have to be for a darn good reason.
Right. And not just an LSU national championship.
No. LSU national championship. That's usually a Davidoff for a release. I mean,
yeah.
You got to treat myself some way, repeatably.
So how old is that pipe tobacco? I guess now it'd be like 6 years.
I would put
that you bought it from. Since you bought it from her, at least
6 or 7.
Okay.
Because when did the deeming regulations came out? 17.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
It's probably
16,
about,
16,
17. Just about as old as that Tender Frog Morton, and that's another beautiful aspect of pipe tobacco.
They date.
A lot of manufacturers will date. Some not as obvious as others, but those resources can be found online to date. But pipe tobacco has a higher sugar content than cigar tobacco, and because of that, it will age a lot differently and a lot more dramatically, I would find. And the beauty of it is pipe tobacco is vacuum sealed in tins most of the time. That if you buy online or you buy from any of the bigger blending houses, They tin up their tobacco in an anaerobic environment where you'll have your aerobic fermentation, which a lot of us know is, that's beer, that's your wine, that's your whiskey. But then you have anaerobic fermentation, which happens in the lack of oxygen.
Yeah.
And so they'll tin these tobaccos up. They'll go through that first process of fermentation. And then as soon as all that oxygen is ate up in the tin from those microbes, the anaerobic will start up and a different set of microbes will come and they'll ferment. And so these tobaccos, I have personally from y'all, I've found a tin of MacBaron Navy Flake from 2012. I purchased that, I think, around the time frame of 2017. It already had 5 years on it. I opened that tin and it sparkled. And that was from the sugar crystals in the tobacco. And that's another interesting aspect because I don't know if y'all have talked about it on the podcast, but plume.
Mm-hmm.
Is it real? Does it exist?
Yeah.
Cigars, personally, I believe it's all mold because I feel like it's a way that the industry was just used to sell product. Like, instead of letting it go bad and having to get rid of it.
Right.
Which I can understand.
Yeah. No manufacturer wants to
admit that their product's bad, but it's a natural product. These are dead leaves at the end of the day.
Yeah. Constantly decomposing, essentially.
Yes. But as I said, the sugar content and also a lot of tobaccos are topped or have casings that have additional sugar. And so you'll find it's typically more flakes, but I've opened up tins or I've, pulled stuff out of my cellar that I've had jarred up that have a sparkle to them. Like it's either salt or sugar or something from that casing, just years of sitting and collecting on that leaf.
I wonder if with talking about the science of that, if that's kind of similar to like you see like Parmigiano Reggiano, where that cheese you cut into it.
Yes, because there's crystals.
It has those crystals. I wonder if maybe there's some similarity.
Well, Parmesan, it's going to be the glutamates that are crystallizing. What gives us, or we get like MSG from. Well, not specifically MSG, but the same acid that creates monosodium glutamate. Is glutamic acid, and so that's the crystallized form of that. But who doesn't love a good piece of Parmesan cheese when it crunches? Right. It's like flavor.
Speaking of food, how was this weekend? I know you work. I don't know if I can mention the restaurant, but yeah, downtown.
So Friday was good. People were coming in for the Florida game for they stay in the hotels downtown, and so we get full up on Fridays with people coming in and out of town. Like I had like a family group or a work group that was in for the game. And they were a blast. It's always fun whenever I get to interact with these customers, especially when I know they're LSU fans, because I can just like rib them and have fun with them because they're here for the game. They're here to drink and have a good time. But it was good. We had a good weekend.
Yeah. And how about that game, huh?
Oh my Lord, that was a game. They had me worried there for a minute. They always do. Got to work on the defense, but Jaden Daniels, that man can run. That I'm still flabbergasted that we got an 85-yard quarterback sneak on one of those plays that just had me bewildered. Befuddled.
Yeah, I happened to catch the I think it was the end of the third quarter to the end of the game, and just like watching him. I don't watch as much LSU football, but I happened to just catch it just out of curiosity, and it was impressive. Like what. His performance. And now they're talking about Heisman. I haven't been watching the season as closely, but now they're talking Heisman. Is that valid, or what do you think?
I think it's very valid. I feel like he should have it, mainly because the dude is putting up numbers that no one else is. But the only reason a lot of people aren't talking about it as early as we have 3 losses.
The record, yeah.
Daniels is not the defense. He was literally 82.7% of our offense.
What?
Saturday.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Man. 606 yards on his own. He's the first player in FBS history to have 350 plus yards in the air, 200 plus yards on the ground. It's absurd. It's unheard of.
And then on the telecast, I saw some stat they threw up. Previous Heisman Trophy winners that had 3 losses. That includes Tim Tebow,
Lamar
Jackson.
And Robert
Lamar
Griffin
Jackson.
III.
Yeah.
So it's not out of the question.
Right.
I hope to see LSU get another Heisman, especially so fast after Joe Burrow, which that's another thing. If we never had Joe Burrow, we'd all be losing our minds over Daniels, which is kind of a little funny to think about because LSU has never been known for our quarterbacks.
Right.
We've always been known for running backs, receivers, and defensive backs.
Yep.
We're not talking about defensive backs this year. I don't know what you're talking about. We don't have those.
So has that been the weak point for this team this year?
Our defense has not been what it should be. And I say this with all the love of LSU in my heart. I really feel like there's a lot that can be worked on, and I feel like they know that as well. They have been. I've noticed they've been improving week by week. They have gotten better. We've gotten more stops. We've allowed less, offense from the other opponents. But as I said, this year I really can't be that upset. I'm a little disappointed, but it's been a good year. We only have 3 losses. Knock on wood, we won't have any more. But should be a good year for the rest of the year.
So do you think Brian Kelly improves from here on out, or
I feel like Brian Kelly is doing a good job. I feel like once we get a few more years of players and development and recruitment and biting into the system, we will. Now, I do like how you are probing on the question, being that you are a Notre Dame fan, and you kind of get a little bit of the he's on y'all now.
No, actually, so I'm different. So I attended the University of Notre Dame, and when LSU announced they got Brian Kelly, I was probably the only Notre Dame alum that was actually kind of happy and started predicting like, oh man, if LSU fans can give him time, at least 3-4 years, I predict he can bring a championship to LSU. But as we know, our fan base doesn't have much patience, and
fair weather fans. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of diehard fans too. There are a lot of people that bleed purple and gold. But we do have a fair bit of fair weather fans in our fan base. But I'm with you. I feel like he has the talent pool down here. Because let's be honest, a lot of those bigger schools, even up north, are pulling from the South. They're recruiting from the South. There is a massive amount of talent that comes out of these high schools down here. And it's not just Louisiana. You have Texas, you have Florida, you have Alabama, you have Mississippi. You have powerhouses of just players that are coming up. I mean, and just over the years, as like people get like as the years go on, so these high school kids are like, how are you a high school kid? Like, you're a grown man playing high school football. What is going on?
Yeah.
What are they feeding you?
Yeah, it must be the food down here in the South, right?
Hey, nothing like some gumbo and etouffee to beef you right up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, I mean, I made that prediction based on his time at Notre Dame and then his time previous to that at Cincinnati. I mean, he built both of those programs up. And Notre Dame, I mean, has been just lagging and has, in my opinion, has been resting on their laurels, for decades. And I think a lot of it has to do with like our academic standards. But like what Brian Kelly did, and I think took us to at least 1 or 2 championship appearances, but we lost to Alabama. So that was kind of interesting to watch Brian Kelly and LSU, how he would face off with Nick Saban, but didn't get it done. But
this year.
Right, this year, right.
Last year. That was fun. The one game I didn't bring cigars to.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Have you noticed? I feel like in the recent years, you're seeing more cigar smoking on the field, especially in the SEC.
Oh, as a celebration, like when people storm the fields. Yeah, it's becoming a thing.
I love that.
I'm here for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something about the wafting of cigar smoke in the fall air after a victory.
Do you know if a lot of LSU fans in the stadium at Tiger Stadium bring cigars or they smoke? I know that's a big thing in Alabama.
It's a non-zero number. I see a fair bit of fans when I'm walking about tailgating. I mean, outside, but what about in the stadium? Like maybe after a win, or I don't really see that. So no, because we're not supposed to. No tobacco campus.
I'm sure. Same with Alabama, though.
Yes, as I said, after the Alabama game last year, I actually know there was the Bocock cigar guys. They were posting pictures of guys actually smoking their cigars on the field, which I don't know if they had a table set up handing them out, which I would have liked to know where. I love a free cigar.
Yeah.
But there were some people on the field smoking cigars afterwards. Like but kind of becomes synonymous with big wins. And it doesn't hurt that, you have the images of Joe Burrow smoking a cigar after the national championship. And when baseball did it, they were smoking cigars. And even the women's basketball team, they were smoking cigars. That's cool. I was like, okay, get it, girls. I like it.
Yeah. Well, it just shows you like the traditional aspect of enjoying a cigar
hmm
after a victory, right? Like that victory cigar that I know there was that Boston Celtics head coach. I think his name was
Wasn't the Patriots?
I don't know about the Patriots, but in the NBA, I think the coach was Red Auerbach. Is how he was known as like pulling out the victory cigar. This is like back, I guess, in the I don't know what decade that would have been, maybe 70s.
I know the Patriots, one of their recent Super Bowl wins, they pulled out they made a special humidor of the Padron Hammers.
Oh yeah,
And
that's right.
I remember
the owner, Kraft.
Robert Kraft was handing them out. He hands out the Padrones, these are 50-year-old cigars. I'm sitting there going like, it's a Padron 50 if it's not 50 years old. Yeah, but okay.
Yeah. I'll take a cigar.
I'll take a cigar,
especially if it's a 50 years. Yep. But no, and I'm seeing that a lot more, not just in the collegiate level, but in the professional level, where you're seeing the passing out of cigars after World Series. Like we saw it with the Texas Rangers, they were passing out the Oscar Valladares.
Yes.
LSU college baseball, they were passing out.
Baseball.
I think was it Bocock Brothers.
It was
also?
Bocock's the World Traveler Habano because it's purple and gold.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, Bocock Brothers, shout out to them. They're a boutique cigar company that most of their stuff is either made by Plasencia or AJ Fernandez. And one of the brothers, it's two brothers, he graduated LSU. So that's where that connection with LSU and Bocock Brothers comes into play. Yeah, I saw their Instagram page yesterday. They had they made some kind of cigar in honor for the 2003 national champion team.
They did that for the 20th anniversary, which I remember when my mom mentioned that to me. That was 20 years ago. I had a existential crisis because that was 20 years ago, and I was 10 when they won that game.
Oh no!
Yeah, where does the time go? But they did make a special band for those cigars, and I actually have a couple because
of those 2003. Okay,
well, I've mentioned it to you before. My mom worked for football during that time frame. She was on staff, and so she went to go reminisce with some of the players, and she grabbed me a couple while we were there. So I think it's their Connecticut. It doesn't look like the Habano. It's too light. But they were selling boxes to the players. Okay. I would not have mind grabbing one, but I wasn't there. I had to work. So
now you mentioned your mom's connection with LSU, and you attended LSU.
Yep.
Tell me about your time as what you did there.
So I did my 4 years at LSU, and I was also a non-playing member of the Tiger Band, where I was what was affectionately referred to as I was a band manager, aka band mom.
Okay.
In other words, I don't want to say on the podcast. But basically, I was a student staff member, and I helped with a lot of miscellaneous things, like if anyone's have any experience with marching band, like the practice field, we typically do dots along the yard lines to help get the bandsmen get their positions. So we would go out and do that before the games.
Okay.
Get the ladders set up and help with uniform maintenance and stock of old borrowed instruments and whatnot. So basically just helping hand around with the band staff, with the band directors and graduate assistants.
And so you did that during your 4 years?
Yep, did that for all 4 years. It was essentially like a job at the time because we had Mondays off, but Tuesday to Saturday we had practice all those days. Saturdays, of course, was game day.
Okay.
But Tuesday to Friday, we would practice, and the time slot would be like, I think 2 to 5 and it was right when like every place had a shift change. So it's like kind of hard to maintain a job. So college, I just did band manager, and I would go work at one of the restaurants on the weekend and had a good time doing it. But because of being in Tiger Band, I got to go to multiple bowl games with the team, with the band. I got apparel each year. Like we would get Nike gear, like polos, and we get backpacks.
Oh man, nice.
Well, you had to be in uniform.
Yeah.
And so they would provide us with that. And the coolest thing I got to go do is I got to go to Ireland in 2014, the March of the St. Patrick's Day Parade.
Oh. Huh.
And that was a feat. We did a lot of fundraising to help send the whole band because not a lot of schools have the funds to just up and send their band to a foreign country for like a 2.5 day trip.
Wow.
So we did a lot of fundraising with the help of like some local organizations like the Bingo Bells and other groups like that. And so we got enough to send the full 325, which is the total operating number of the band members. That
Okay.
includes Golden Girls and the Color Guard, and then the 25 extra of us staff members and associated family and people.
Man, so you went to Ireland for that?
Yeah, I got to go to March in the St. Patrick's Day parade. Me and one of my other band managers got to hold the banner in front of the whole band. So if you look up photos, you'll see my little self. I think I'm on the right side if you're looking at it, looking at the banner. But yeah, that was a great trip. Got to experience a little bit of those oppressive European tobacco taxes.
Yeah. Did you go to Peterson?
So I stepped into Peterson and I looked around. I was like, oh, wow, this is so cool. And then I'm swiftly yanked by the back of my neck, like, come on, we got to go get food.
Oh.
And so all the other times I tried to walk back by there, they were closed.
Oh, okay.
So
for those who don't know, what's Peterson? What are we talking about?
Peterson is one of the storied pipe makers.
Mm-hmm.
They also have tobaccos and other goodies, but Peterson pipes have been around for years. They're an Irish company. They're typically known for their machine-made pipes. So what they'll do is they'll take the block of briar and they'll machine out the basic shape of, like the top of the bowls and the stems, and then they're finished by hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other finishes that they put on, like the rustication and the paint and all that. And so Peterson has been around since
I think the 1800s,
somewhere in that time frame. You can find pre-Republic of Ireland pipes and all that. I have an old second line from them. They're Shamrock that I found in a local antique store. I was like, oh, hey, this is old. Cool.
Wow. Yeah. So you didn't get a chance to go back. That's a shame. But did they, like, how big was the storefront?
It was a pretty good sized store.
Okay.
They had a lot of beautiful pipes, and I mean, I didn't get time to dig in and look at all of it, but they had some good stuff. I will say I am glad I do not have to buy cigars in Ireland.
Oh yeah, you mentioned their oppressive tax situation.
Oppressive, and they don't have the pretty bands anymore. And I mean, it's nice.
Oh wait, they got rid of the bands.
They have the puke green bands. Yeah,
that must be just a British or UK thing.
It's a UK thing,
and Ireland, Irish thing.
Yeah, and New Zealand and Australia.
Oh
yeah.
Oh yeah. I guess any of the Commonwealth nations.
Yeah,
I think in Canada it's the same way too.
Yep. In Canada, although in Canada a lot of the times,
plain packaging requirements now.
Yeah, although a lot of the times you could just slide that little green band off, and the pretty band's still under there. But
really,
yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, a lot more of the recent stuff. I don't know about new production, but the last few years, people will be able to buy a box and like, oh, hey, look, band.
Yeah. So like when people come into our store and ask us like tips on when they travel abroad about buying Cuban cigars, because of course you can't legally buy and sell here. I try to tell them, like, don't buy it in the UK because that tobacco tax is so bad. Oh, and if you see, like, if you read Cigar Aficionado, they have at least I used to. I haven't seen an issue recently, but when they would quote the prices, they would put pounds, and it's like way above MSRP. Oh, yeah. So I try to tell people, look, if you want to travel abroad and if you can get a chance to go to at least Spain, I don't know about Germany and France, which would also be good cigar markets, but Spain has the best pricing on Cuban cigars because of their historical connection, and then the conglomerate that distributes Habanos, that distributes the cigars around the world.
Typically, the España regionals are pretty good too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, those are awesome.
You know what? Another ones I've had good regionals from Caribbean, the Caribs.
Yes. Really? Wait, which one?
The La Gloria Cubana Caribe is one of my all-time favorite Habanos. That's
what size is that about? Do you remember?
It's like a Petite Robusto range. Okay. So it's not the biggest cigar, but it is flavorful, and it's one of my biggest regrets. A while back, one of the forums that I'm a member of, we decided to do a massive group buy of Cuban cigars, and so we had like 4 or 5 boxes that we got, like 3 or 4 of each box, parted them all out. We all worked out the prices and we all paid and got all sent the same sampler of cigars. At the end of it, there was about 11 or 12 of those La Gloria Cubana Caribes left. And I'm sitting there going like, man, I really want the rest of those, but I don't need to do it. I need to be good. And this is back when Cuban prices were not crazy.
Yeah. I
And
was actually looking at some of the pricing today,
no,
as a matter of
it's
fact.
absurd. But at the time, I was like, man, I need to be good. I don't need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I kick myself to this day. To this
Oh,
day, those things were so good. But if to touch what you said about the Cuban prices, you used to be able to find your gray market sellers. You could get a box of like Cohiba Sigilo ones. The last time I bought a box was $198 for a box of Sigilo ones. Yeah, they're little short
yeah.
smokes, but nowadays that same box you're looking at $400 to $500.
Whoa. So I talked to Steve Saka months ago. This must have been back in May of this year. And he gave me insight into the effects of the Cuban cigar pricing. I may have talked about it in a previous episode, but anyway, so because the prices went up so drastically, the non-Cuban or the New World cigars are now selling a lot more in the international markets because people are realizing, especially retailers, well, I can get just as good, actually better quality cigars at like a third of the price.
Yep.
Why not just start offering and stocking the shelves with the non-Cuban cigars?
Oh, it makes sense. In fact, I find you have more range of flavors with the non-Cubans. Because let's be honest, there's no way to actually tell if the blend of a Cohiba is different than the blend of a Monte Cristo. It's a communist country. They're not going to tell us.
Right.
Like for all we know, it's all the same leaf from the same valley. It just looks prettier than the other.
Right.
So
yeah, it's all very kind of
Yep.
like monotone or
Yep.
mono.
Well, as I said, like they're very tight-lipped about it. They want to maintain that mystique. And I still think America is one of the biggest buyers of Cuban cigars. It's just not legal.
That's right. That I've been told that officially we can't be listed in like any of the numbers, but yeah, talking to people in the industry, Americans are buying most of the Cubans abroad.
Yeah, like it
because we're still the number one cigar consumer in the world.
So, and of course,
I'm sure China will be catching up to it too.
They own half of Habanos.
Yeah,
and they're booming with tobacco. Little side note: my brother got to go to China a couple years back, right before the pandemic, when he was working for a vape shop, and he was going to go. He got to be like this vape industry trade show, which
in China,
yes,
okay,
in Shenzhen, I believe.
I think it's so funny that you are the brother who likes the premium cigars and pipe tobacco, and he's the one who does the vape.
Yep. It was fun at the time when he was working there because where the shop used to be was right next door to the vape shop he worked at.
Yeah.
And so I would always go in and enjoy my cigars, and I would get a text message from like, hey, give me some gelato. And at the time, y'all used to have that Capital City gelato.
Oh, yeah.
So I just go run across the store and bring him some gelato.
Yeah.
But
he went over to China.
He got to go over to China, and one of the guys that was their kind of guide, my brother thinks he might have been part of the triad. This dude was smoking through boxes of Bolivar Royal Coronas.
What?
Just smoking them like cigarettes.
Dang.
Like just keeping them down. I'm like, that's absurd.
Yeah.
But there's money in China. It's not all purely communist anymore. It's becoming more capitalist.
What city was that? Where do you know? Was it was it Hong Kong?
It was either Hong Kong or Shenzhen.
Okay. Because I know Hong Kong historically has been very that's a cigar capital.
Yep.
People don't know. And I had a buddy who also went to Hong Kong. I can't remember if it was the fall of 2019 or the fall of 2018, obviously before the lockdowns. And he's a big cigar smoker. He was telling when he got back, he was telling me the stories of like the cigar lounges in Hong Kong. If you have a chance to go there, they're just awesome. Like they're a cigar nerds, dream. And you go to these lounges and you see, with Hong Kong being a financial center, a lot of like the stock pickers or people in the financial markets, they will work from the cigar lounges. They have the Wi-Fi and they're just smoking and on the computer. Like it's awesome. Yeah.
Hey, that's living the dream.
But like Hong Kong to kind of underscore the point of how, I guess like cigar forward they are. What I've been told is that a lot of, especially like your there are a lot more collectors in Hong Kong. So they will have like a room or a closet and just age cigars. Like they're constantly buying cigars by the box. And what they like to do, a lot of them, is age their cigars for like at least 10, 20 years.
Oh, the dream.
And so when they're smoking, like they're constantly rotating age. So they're constantly buying cigars, but just to set away.
Yep.
And then whatever they're smoking has been aged to like whatever
preference.
Yeah, they like.
Be careful with that though, because there's some cigars that will age out.
Yeah.
Like nothing more fun than sitting on a box and you're so excited for it, and then you go to smoke and you're like, I mean, it's there, but it's not. It's kind of sad.
Have you heard the name Min Ra Ni before?
Min Ra Ni, no.
Okay, so I got to do maybe a podcast on him. So he's the author of this, like, and I have a copy. I should have brought it. I didn't know we'd be talking about that, but he wrote a book, co-wrote it with an individual from the Cuban government about Cuban cigars. Essentially, the title is called, it's like a long name, The Illustrated Encyclopedia to the Post-Revolution Havana Cigar is the name of the title. And it's like, I don't know, 400 pages maybe.
Oh, wait, is that the big old cigar?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
You know,
so all the pictures in that book are from his collection. And he goes into detail about every brand from, obviously, right, the post-revolution.
Have you seen the recent one?
No.
I cannot remember it is, but I have a few friends that bought it. There's a new cigar encyclopedia, and it's a much more up-to-date version of the Cuban cigar market.
Is it written by that same individual, Min Ra Ni?
I will have to get back to you on that.
Okay. Because I've wondered if he's had like different printings.
Yeah. But it's this beautiful like coffee table book, like like gold leaf on the edges, and it's stunning. I mean, I personally haven't had one in my hands, but I've had friends I've
never showed you that book.
No, you never showed me that book.
Yeah, after we get done with this, I'll show it to you.
Definitely.
So the one I have is a first printing, and I think it came out in 2003 or 4. But in it, he has a section on aging.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of takes a scientific approach. Now, there's not a lot known. Well, of course, a lot of Americans don't even know who he is. But for a while, people were starting to wonder, like, is this guy real? Like, they didn't even know if he was real. But my friend who went to Hong Kong, he said he went to a cigar lounge. I think it was called Cigar. I don't know how to pronounce it. Divan or Divan, Divan. It's a well-known cigar lounge. And they actually had a sign or something attributing to Min Ra Ni that like this is his spot or his store, and maybe that's not even the lounge, but like apparently he's real. So, like, but he's kind of like, I don't know, like a Kaiser Soze of like Cuban cigars and aging in the Hong Kong market.
This mythological figure of knowledge.
Yeah, but I'll have to show you this book. It's pretty impressive. They even have a section for Davidoff.
Yes,
because remember we had the Davidoff dinner last week, and the ambassador kind of told us about.
Yep.
Do you remember?
Yeah,
the details?
Davidoff used to have Cuban heritage.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, a little bit of tidbit. Don't know how common knowledge it is. I've heard this before, and I might be wrong, but the Cohiba Sigilo line,
okay,
is supposedly based off that Davidoff line. That used to be Cuban.
Oh, the Chateau series. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And which kind of the timelines do meet up, because Cohiba's not that old of a brand, right?
It was one of the first, or if not the first, post-revolution cigars.
Yeah,
so from 60.
Yeah, 60. Evan
63 maybe.
The Sigilos came out in like the late 90s, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not like 100% well versed in the Cuban.
But I've heard that the Sigilo 1 through 6 are supposed to be clones of what those Davidoff blends were in Cuba.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because a lot of people, to give insight to listeners, Davidoff used to be made in Cuba, and the series we're talking about, I think, was released in the 70s or 80s.
Yep.
Because for me, like the Davidoff Dom Perignon is like my white whale. I'm trying to find one, but I've heard like even from our rep said that, I mean, they're kind of aged out now. I mean, what were we talking about? Like close to a 40-year-old cigar.
Yeah.
So it's probably aged out.
Cuban
not much flavor.
I mean, at the time, Cuban leaf used to be some of the strongest stuff, but over 40, 50 years, that's going to peter out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they had Cuban heritage. And then in the 90s, when they got a shipment and Zeno Davidoff was not happy with it.
Yeah.
I mean, did not like it. But he had to honor the commitment. He bought all the cigars. And then I believe he said in front of the press, basically took a match and burned the whole pile. because they
because
were
it wasn't to his
not of
standards.
this quality. And then
Yeah.
from that point, they left and went to the Dominican Republic, and they are what we know today.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really fun dinner.
Mhm.
And to explain to people, we just had basically a cigar dinner with Davidoff that they market as the Davidoff gastronomy experience. We had it at Cocha, which I mean, I got to give him props. Just
Excellent.
awesome. Yeah. Have you been to Cocha before?
That was my first experience with Cocha.
Okay. Yeah. It's a restaurant in downtown Baton Rouge. I guess I would describe their cuisine as like contemporary European,
New age,
yeah,
modern.
but just a focus on like really good product, sourcing at the farmers market locally. And
Oh yeah, they do have that farmers market right next to them.
yeah, so on North 6th Street for anyone curious, if they're interested in hearing about it. But yeah, we had the cigar dinner there. We had it outside. The brand ambassador and our rep was there. We had our folk come in, and they created a menu specifically for the cigars that we were pairing. So it was an awesome time.
That was great.
Yeah.
Now I just need more of that duck.
Yeah, that was so good.
That was so good.
So no, this smoke is really good. I'm pretty impressed with it. Like, to me, it's gotten even just cleaner during the session. This Frog Morton.
Yeah, as you work your way down the bowl, kind of like as you're progressing through a cigar, it will, I mean, not super much, but the flavors will change and it will concentrate a little bit more and get a little bit better. But I mean, this isn't English, and as we mentioned earlier, they're smoky. But the one thing that was a beautiful aspect of McClelland, especially this Frog Morton series, it wasn't super in your face. It wasn't like you're sitting next to a barbecue grill smoky. It was a milder smoky, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got a lot of that smoky character in the beginning, but as we're progressing, like, it's really just like balanced out, mellowed out. I'm pretty happy with it. And so to kind of bring up another tip that we impart to beginners is during the session while you're smoking your pipe, as you're smoking, and if you see it and start to notice the smoke get thinner, you got to retamp during the session. Because the number one complaint I hear from beginners is that, oh, the pipe tobacco keeps going out on me. I got to keep relighting it. Well, they weren't told that during the session, you need that tamper.
Yep.
So because with the heat, that pipe tobacco always wants to spread out.
Well, and you're making ash as well. So you want to push that.
But you got to retamp it and feed that fire. So once you retamp that, and you got to draw in there at the same time, you'll notice it catch fire again and you're good. So it prevents you from having to relight. But like you said, if you have to relight, that's fine.
Yeah.
But you still have to retamp it.
Keep it going. Now, I will say a little bit of a caveat to that. You don't want the same volume of smoke output as a cigar.
Yeah.
Because you're drawing too hard at that point. As you talked about earlier with the, you don't want to get it too hot. So you're going to have a fair bit of smoke, but you don't want too little either. Too much, too little. It's a balance. So, and that's where, as you said, a lot of people will have issues with pipe tobacco as an art. And like pipe smoking, you will find your pattern, your rhythm, your preference to smoking a pipe. It will take time. It is a patient man's thing. There's rituals to it. As I mentioned earlier, with sending your tobacco out to dry. There's one of the forms of pipe tobacco that I enjoy personally, it's just fun. There are plugs of tobacco where it's whole leaf that has been pressed together and to the point that it's a solid brick. And I know a guy that has been blending his own plugs. He gets them from whole leaf tobacco websites. He'll case them. He'll strip the stems, and he bought himself a hydraulic press and just will make his blends, crank them down, and that way that plug will hold moisture for years almost. That's how they used to sell it, back in the day, where you get your Navy blends from, because it would be
what makes it a Navy blend?
Well, typically it was these plugs of tobacco. In order to keep them moist, you would throw them in the rum barrel.
Yep. Yeah. They were basically cased or topped with rum.
With rum. Yeah. So because they were, sailors, they just throw it in the rum barrel, keep it moist, and hey, I can get drunk while smoking it too. Why not? So, but that's where the Navy blend comes from, is that rum casing.
Yeah. So let's go on and discuss about estate pipes.
Yes. So
What can you tell me about estate pipes? What are we talking about?
estate pipes typically come. It's the better description for a lot of the times. They're secondhand pipes,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not to demean them in any way, shape, or form. Most of the pipes that I got when I first started on this hobby were estate pipes that, they've been used, but they're not full price. It was an easier, more acceptable way into the hobby. And then you have some estate pipes that are actually from an estate. And but the thing about it is it could be all over the board in range of quality and a range of wear, tear, use. But sometimes you get lucky and you find some really well kept estates and you can find some really good deals.
Yeah. To which leads to the perfect segue for the pipes that we have here. So I called you, this must have been about a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
So one of my dreams of being a tobacconist came true, where we had a gentleman come in, and we get, people from time to time offering to sell us maybe some of their relatives' pipes who passed away. And I always was waiting for, what if we get like that Dunhill in that pack or in that bunch? And it finally happened. So we had a gentleman come, and he had a collection of like over 60 pipes. And, he asked us, oh, would we have an interest in buying these and offering them as estate pipes? And we said, oh yeah, well, let's take a look. We'll always want to take a look just to see. And they had this one pipe, which I recognize as a Dunhill with their signature white dot.
Yep, the white spot.
And I didn't really know how to price it, but I just always wanted a Dunhill in our collection. And so we came up with the pricing and got the whole lot. But I didn't really know anything about the other like 59 pipes. I was just like after this one. And once we started doing our research, we realized, holy cow, we have like a real connoisseur's collection.
Yep.
So basically I brought a few of the pipes from our estate collection, and we marketed it as the Dr. Dan estate because that was who the deceased individual was. And so the first one, like I said, is Dunhill, and these are, just so you know, if you're listening or watching this, they're available for sale on our website. And yeah, these are real collector's pieces. And I didn't really know much about Dunhill to begin with, so I had to do a lot more research, regarding just the company itself. And I came to an appreciation that if you look at the markings, they have, numbers or letters that actually mean something.
Yes.
So can you give me some insight into that, or what you know about?
So this Dunhill Shellbriar, this is a group 4, which is one of the larger groups, and that has to do with the bowl size, and all that. It does have the size or the shape number, which is eluding me because this one's a little bit older. But I think this is an 04, but this is their classic billiard shape.
Yeah, that's a billiard.
And so pipe makers, manufacturers, they have so many different systems for shapes and sizes and finishes, but you have your standard shapes, but this is their classic billiard. In fact, Dunhill was one of the pioneers of this shape. Like, billiards is one of their classic bread and butter.
Okay.
But the Shellbriar is a sandblast finish. Typically means that the briar wasn't necessarily pretty enough to be a smooth finish to show all the grain, but still unique enough that they wanted to give it a textural experience. And you could still see some of the ring grain on here, and it's beautiful.
So this is what we have listed on our website at shop.habanaport.com. We have an actual section called the Dr. Dan Estate Pipe Collection. So I'm just going to read a little bit from this entry. Based on the markings on the bottom, we have determined that this Dunhill is from the Shellbriar finish / line, which refers to their sandblasting process of Algerian briar root, or as their patent application states, shelled by the application of heat and sand. The date code indicates that this is from 1964. LBS refers to long billiard, but we have yet to confirm the S. We think it means slender, as there is just the LB classification. F/T refers to the mouthpiece, which is a fishtail format. In near mint condition, there is only slight cake in the bowl. And as most of Dr. Dan's pipes, this one has been well kept. And all estate pipes are sold as is. So yeah, it's I really came to an appreciation for Dunhill in that their markings, their code. There's so much information that someone can
Yeah, and
find out.
there's lots of resources to find that out as well. One
Mm-hmm.
of the ones that I go to if I'm ever looking at estate pipes online, if I'm curious, if I want to pick one up myself, Pipepedia.
Oh yeah, I've used that resource.
Yeah,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
and they have all kinds of makers on like the Savinelli that I have in my hand. You can find information on from Peterson, on Dunhill, on any of this stuff. And one of the beautiful things about Dunhill is I mentioned earlier Peterson's more like or machine made pipes. Dunhill is definitely has a lot more hands on in the process, but you could kind of say they're in a similar vein.
Mm-hmm.
They manufacture a lot of the same standard shapes. They're available. They have multiple different finishes, and they're always going to be quality.
Yeah.
I have a couple of my collections. I have one from like the 1950s. It's a little Group 1 Apple. That thing is perfect for a short smoke. And I also have a little bit more. And they have some obscure ones as well, like one that I call it's my birthday volcano. It's a 1993 Shellbriar sitter it has like a conical bowl on the outside, so it kind of looks like a sitting volcano with a stem on it.
No, it's and for the price, I mean, I think that it's pretty reasonable to get something that's 50, 60, 70 years old. So anyone interested that is in our shop or can go online, they can take a look and see the pictures, but just to kind of prop up for the camera a little bit more better representation of it. Before we get to the next pipe, what pipe do you have?
So this
today?
one is a little bit special to me. This is one of the first pipes that I bought in my first years of pipe smoking. This is my Savinelli St. Nicholas 2016. Oh, if I remember correctly, the size.
It'd be like a slight bent or half bent.
Oh, it's a full.
It's a full bent. Okay.
Billiard. It's like a 603 KS, which is their bent billiard line. But the KS typically stands for like extra big. Like this
Okay.
This is a big boy. I love this pipe is treating me well. I got these I purchased this from Lou. Almost 7 years ago now? Yes. So, but it's been a trustworthy pipe, and Savinelli is another one. They're up there with Peterson. A lot of these pipes are machine made, but I have never ran across a Savinelli that was unsmokable.
Yeah. No, solid pipe.
Solid.
I would a fair characterization of Savinelli be like Savinelli is to Italy as Peterson is to Ireland.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah. Very well known
Mm-hmm.
pipe manufacturers for those respective countries.
Yes.
Yeah. And then just to let people know what I smoked today. This is a Nording, and they are Danish, and this is part of their Hunter series. So I don't know if they still do it. I haven't really.
They do.
They do?
Yeah.
Okay. Every year they pick an animal and they base the shape of the pipe based on that animal. And this one was a cheetah. So, and I just like the shape of it. That's what kind of.
It has a nice round.
Yeah.
It's well in the hand.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And that's one of the things we tell people who are interested in buying a pipe. It's all personal preference,
Mm-hmm.
right? What looks good to you? What feels good in the hand? How does it feel resting in the mouth if you're going to be holding it, like so?
I mean, of course, you don't want them doing that in the middle of the shop. Like, oh, let me put this pipe on.
Yeah, exactly. There are some shops that have like these little sleeves. We used to do that.
Sam showed me those a while back. I'm like, that's cool. Still a little weird.
Yeah. It's almost kind of like a pipe condom where it allows the consumer to like kind of test it. But we stopped doing that or even offering that just because I don't know. It just seems kind of weird.
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to buy a pipe wondering like, man, was this in other people's mouths?
It's
even
like,
though it had a covering.
Well, that is a lot of why people are so some people are apprehensive to buying estate pipes.
Right.
But,
right.
9 times out of 10, they've been cleaned. And if it's been sitting long enough, anything that's on it's going to be dead.
Yeah. And that's what we like most pipe shops that offer estate pipes. They go through cleaning, disinfecting. So we're not going to put out something that we wouldn't smoke ourselves.
And if you're absolutely that worried about it, you can find guys that will refurbish your pipe for you.
Oh,
And
okay.
they're not that pricey, maybe $20, but get a polish and shine and get a good clean on it, and boom, like brand new.
Yeah. And so let's go on to the next pipe from the Dr. Dan collection. I like this one. It's from a company called Becker. Are you familiar with Becker?
Yeah, Becker, I believe, is more of a independent carver, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
Yep. So let's see here. Here's some of the information I have. It's called the Becker Sandblasted Morta, and in parentheses, bog oak. So I'm sure maybe that refers to the finish.
No, bog oak is the
Oh,
wood.
okay.
So
So it's not briar.
No, that is not briar. That is morta, which is essentially, you know how we have the swamp cypress here in Louisiana?
Yeah.
It's essentially the same thing, except that's oak that was found at the bottom of a bog. And because of the environment, the lack of oxygen, it's just created that color in the way it changed the properties of the wood.
Yeah, no, I just like how the piece looks just from a shape standpoint and the
Yes.
color. And there's a lot more information online, so we have all these listed online if people who are listening have more interest. On to the third one. What can you tell me about this? Because I didn't even take a good look at this one.
This one is, I'm a little bit of a fan of this maker or make group of makers. This is a Castello Old Ciroc, and old in the finish name, but also old in the fact that this one is from the Carlos Scotti era of carvers. Right now, I believe they are on Kino, but this is a Castello 4K, which is their grading system.
Okay.
So the more Ks, typically the bigger it is and the better the grade. Yes, I know it can be unfortunate for some of their pipes. The joke's been made.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
This is their number 56. So there are another ones that number their shapes.
Okay.
So this is kind of like a tall bulldog. It has those lines and it's that square diamond shank. But this is their Ciroc finish, which was a rustication as opposed to a sandblast, which we talked about with that bog oak and that shellbriar. Rustication is a process to where the maker will have a little tool with a handle on it with maybe some nails or some little spikes coming out of it. And what they'll do is they'll take that tool, kind of work their way on the briar on the outside of it and make these pockets and divots and bumps and grooves and bruises. And that rusticates it. It's another way of using a piece of briar that might not have made grade to be a sandblast or a smooth finish. Cause the grain of it didn't necessarily fit to what the carver really wanted. But another indication of the age of this one is, I don't know how well the camera can pick it up, but the marking on the stem is like a little rhinestone. And that's what Castello used to use for the American market for years until recently they've changed. It's now like a white bar. That's their way.
Like they're marking, I guess.
Yeah, they're marking. It's more so to show you the right way up on the stem. Because over the time you'll notice, like if I take this and if I was to put it in upside down, it don't really like going in that way, but it won't match up.
Yeah.
Like these stems are finished to match up to the pipe. If for any pipe maker worth their salt, we'll have it where they're flush. And
I see.
That marker is to help remind you that it goes this way up.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yep. And it's also just how you can tell it's their pipe.
And where, you may have said it, what country of origin?
Italy.
Okay.
Yes. So Italy has a lot of pipe carvers, and Savinelli is one of them. Castello is one of the bit of the higher end, more well known, and they're known for quality. These are typically handmade. These are done by hand.
Okay.
So there are deviances. Like I have a couple of Castello 33s, which is kind of this chunky billiard shape. One of them sits flat. One of them kind of rolls a little to the side because it's more rounded on the bottom. But that's just to show the sign that they're handmade. They're not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
So, but handmade's a good thing when it comes to pipe because it means that person's got their hand on it. They've seen it. They know about it. They were able to get that draft hole just right and make it where it smokes like a dream.
I guess, I wonder if like a common view on pipes is that all of them are handmade, but you alluded to that. I mean, there are a lot that are machine made.
Well, they're started by a machine. Like, you'll have the lathe systems where they'll basically they have a blank in one and a guide that follows it with the cutting arm on another. And a lot of pipe makers use lathes to make their pipes, but you can't do all the bends and cuts and curves of a pipe on a lathe. You have to finish it by hand in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So machine made is a term, but a lot of it's more of like, is it a factory made pipe or is it a someone that's passionate about it and is an artisan made in their garage or workshop?
Because we have some pipes like that. There's
Yes.
one from Vermont. The name eludes me right now. It's just like one guy,
Yep.
one pipe manufacturer.
And some of these guys, one of the famous one, former Nielsen, that guy's out of Denmark with his pipes, and you'll look at them like, oh man, that's a nice solid pipe. Then you look at the price, and you're like, oh, that's in the thousands.
Yeah.
But that just goes to the quality and craftsmanship that he puts into those pipes to make sure they're spot on, smoke well, and they are like quintessential examples of that pipe and that shape.
And that example you just described, you said Nielsen?
Former Nielsen.
Okay. Okay.
In fact, one of the ones in that collection was a collab with Nielsen and L-Tang, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's what I was looking when you said that name. It reminded me of, I think, the one we're thinking of. Well, it's former and L-Tang.
Yes.
Okay.
Which L-Tang is another guy out of Denmark that makes, or Copenhagen.
Yeah, that one is and so what we've done for the collection to make it easier too is just also number these. So this is the Dr. Dan number 39, which is a former and L-Tang rusticated bent egg.
Mhm.
And that was Pipe and Tobacco's magazine Pipe of the Year. Do you have any insight on that?
I do not.
Okay, so basically that was a magazine, like a pipe forward magazine. They were like the big pipe media of their day, but they closed shop. I forget when, because it just the business model wasn't sustainable, and they would commission a pipe every year, to be made for them by X pipe maker, right? And so this one that we have in the collection is from 2004. It was the 2004 Pipe of the Year, and that was commissioned to Former and L-Tang. It's a rusticated bent egg from Denmark, and so the pipe maker's mark is shown with that L-Tang E. The year 2004 stamped in the silver collar, and they were also numbered, right? So they did 250 pieces that year, and we have number 230.
Nice.
And so that one so far, because we've yet to like list everything because it's just a huge collection, and we're trying to get all the information before publishing them on our website. That one for me is like one of the rarest pieces that we in the collection so far.
It has two very, very big names in the pipe making industry on it, and that's that would be a star piece for anyone that's a serious collector.
Mm-hmm. And then let's go to the final one that we wanted to feature today. Do you know anything about that before I look it up?
Oh, off the top of my head, no.
I think it's Claudio
Cavici,
yeah.
another Italian
yeah
pipe maker,
and they kind of have a similar grading system,
Yep,
but instead of a K,
C's.
it's the C.
Yep,
Yeah,
they have 4 C's. This shape is a fun one. This is a blowfish.
is that what there's
This
actually
is-
a term for
This
it?
is a blowfish.
Okay.
You'll see this similar shape amongst many different pipe makers. And what's fun about it is you could show off the grain in this. And finally, I was about to say, we've talked about, smooth pipes. This is a pipe that was deemed to have enough grain in that block of briar to show off a smooth finish. So on one side, you'll have bird's eye, which is like the termination of upward growth of the grain. On the bottom, you have your straight grain or your flame grain, which is
So I guess the plant, or what would you consider briar?
the root.
It's a root. Okay.
Yeah, it's a burl actually.
Okay.
So a burl, when it comes to wood, is like the
Like a knot. or
not almost like a tumor or a cancer, like the malformation growth.
something? Okay.
That's not just root.
Okay.
But that's why it has this grain pattern, because it's knotted, it's gnarly, it's grows all on top of itself. So you'll have the different types, like the straight grain, the bird's eye, and then on this other side you have a little bit kind of mixture of both. And there's, I think that looks like a bamboo or something type finish accent on the stem. But Claudio Cavici is another. They make beautiful pipes out of Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Like There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, but this one's in great condition.
Yeah, and I'm just reading some of the information we have on our website about this one. We try to put like a little biography or bio talking points with each of these pipe makers. This one says while still farming, Claudio. Oh, so I guess he was a farmer. He was a farmer from the outskirts of Bologna, Italy, and he gained international fame as the world's champion slow smoker, according to the Guinness Book of World Records.
Oh,
And he was frustrated with waiting over a year for commissioned pipe. He decided to make his own in 1974, and so he would make about 700 pipes a year. I don't know. Is he still in production, or do you know offhand?
off the top of my head, I don't know.
Okay.
But I've heard the name Claudio Cavici
Yeah.
often, well
And
enough that
yeah,
I
go ahead.
like as soon as whenever I come over to when we looked at the collection, I did remember like, oh, Cavici, oh, nice. Like I remember like this is one of the ones I was like, oh, that's a cool one.
Yeah. And he has a grading system starting from 1C up to 5Cs.
Yep.
With Perla and Diamante reserved for the most exceptional pieces. So those are rare.
Yeah, you'll have a lot of like these independent makers will have their own systems like that. We mentioned L Tank. He has a snail grade.
Oh, yes, I did see that.
Which those, if you ever get a chance to look them up or see them, they have some stunning wood grain that he does like this shiny, smooth finish on, and a lot of those end up being snail shell shapes.
Mm-hmm.
That's the snail grade.
Yeah. So what is it, like one snail, two snails?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I just know if it's a snail grade, like it's a beautiful piece, and get ready to open your wallet.
Oh yeah. Well, cool. Well, like I mentioned, if anyone's interested in getting more information about these pipes from the Dr. Dan estate, you can check out our website. But we'll leave it there. Thanks for coming in, Jeremy. Before we sign off, we do have one segment that it's basically a rapid fire round of questions. Would you want to participate?
Sure, let's go for it.
Okay, it's called the Final Puff. 5 questions. Number 1, Tabasco, Crystal, or other?
Depends on the food, but typically I go for Crystal.
Okay. Number 2, favorite vacation destination?
That's a tricky one. Honestly, I kind of like staycations.
Okay. Number 3, the ideal person you would want to smoke a cigar, or in our case, pipe tobacco with, alive or deceased?
Oh, see, honestly, just because I know it would be very interesting and different, Freud.
Okay. Number 4, desert island. We usually ask desert island cigar, but let's do desert island cigar and desert island pipe tobacco.
Desert island cigar. Probably have to be a Padron.
Okay.
Because they're solid and they smoke well.
Yeah.
Pipe tobacco, now you're getting a little bit more interesting. I think.
I know. Aromatic versus non-aromatic.
Don't get me started on aromatic.
Yeah, we didn't even go into that today.
Nope. You know what? If I could still get my hands on it, I'm going to have to say McClellan 5100.
Okay. And the final, who would you want to see on a future podcast?
You know, it would be interesting to see if you could reach out and get one of these pipe tobacco manufacturers on here, like a Jeremy Reeves or a what's the guy? I know there's a few guys with Scandinavian, or the guy that was McBaron. I'm drawing a blank, but he's been doing a lot of stuff with Sutliff recently.
Okay. They're a pipe blender?
Yes.
Or a pipe tobacco blender?
Yes. I'll have to get the name for you after the show.
Okay.
But yeah, no,
like some sort of pipe tobacco blender.
Yeah. But like as I mentioned, Jeremy Reeves with
Laudisi?
Laudisi, Cornell and Deal.
Yeah.
They produce a lot of stuff. Some good, some bad, but when they hit. They've had some excellent blends, like off the top of the head, Sun Bear recently.
Oh, okay.
Has been limited and delicious.
Nice.
So.
Well, that will do it. I appreciate you coming on today, man. That was very informative. And we'll probably, we'd love to have you back on in the future for more pipe tobacco related questions or topics. So thanks again.
Always.
All right, everyone. Well, appreciate you tuning in. Until the next cigar or pipe tobacco. Thanks. We'll see you later.